Well, hello there, guys. In amongst all the news to do with elite specializations recently, there has been a lot of other stuff going on. So today I wanted to bring you a few things from the world of data mining, from the world of patch notes, and a big announcement from ArenaNet, namely what you read there in the title. Beta Weekend Event 2 was announced, and the specific new stuff we'll get to play in that beta, as opposed to Beta Weekend Event 1. So those are the topics I want to go over, and specifically for data mining, I'm not going to, and don't be too disappointed by this, because we're going to get the news tomorrow anyway. I'm not going to go over the data mining for the Daredevil stuff. To keep you all in the loop, there's been tons of Daredevil data mining. I can't honestly give speculation about that, so I'll wait for ArenaNet's post on Thursday. Interestingly enough, there was no like ZAM article or massively article this week. It was like we had their thing replaced with just data mining. There's an awful lot of it which you guys can read. We'll see how much is on point or how much isn't coming up from tomorrow. That said though, that is not all the data mining. We'll go to it very soon. Right, first though, let's look at the patch notes. So a few things have happened. Yeah, it's the kind of, for head start, already the anniversary of Guild Wars 2. That means that people who made their characters right on that first 3-day period before launch, they have got their 3rd birthday presents. And these have been changed slightly for this year, and they are far, far better than the Year 1 presents, the Year 2 presents. Let me take you on an adventure. Let me take you on a story back to the wonderful world of Guild Wars 1. Back then, at first, you didn't really get many minis. There was no gem store, they weren't being sold there, there weren't many ways to get them in-game, but one way you surefire could get minis was on your character's birthday. And it would be like this RNG thing. If you got really lucky on that birthday and got a green mini, you could sell it for an awful lot of money, especially if you were one of these earlier created characters. There was generally a lot of hype about it. It wasn't a perfect system, it wasn't a system that guaranteed showed, hey, I am this old for being in this game, because they were all tradable on the market, and you would often get gypped. You know, you'd only get terrible white minis, common minis, and you'd feel sad that your birthday wasn't as exciting as it could have been. But even with that stuff included, it was something you looked forward to. It was a big part of the game. Guild Wars 2, what do we get? We already have minis. We already have a bunch of other stuff as well as main system. So what do? They give us level up scrolls that we don't care about, and they spam us with Queen Jenners. Now, for the 2nd year birthday, we did get the birthday blaster gun as well, and this was pretty fun while it was horribly broken in World vs. World upscaling for a while, but really you don't see too many people use. What did they decide to do for Year 3? Year 3 was much better than the others. What you get is an account-bound die. But that die specifically comes from one of these exclusive die sets that haven't been available for a long time. So, for example, the Flame and Frost dies. These were like the classic ones. I think the first ones that ArenaNet added. You'd have like the Pyre die, I think it was, which was worth tons and tons and tons of money on the trading post for a long time. Well, you can just pick that for this birthday. If that's a color you really liked, if you want one of these high contrast dyes or special things that they've given in the gem store but are incredibly expensive on the TP, you get one for each character that hits 3 years old. The cool thing about it though is these dyes are account bound, and that means they won't destroy the existing dye economy. So, for example, you can pick Electro Blue dye. Electro Blue dye happened to be, it might have changed now, happened to be the most expensive dye in the entire game, clocking in at over 1,000 gold. So if you have a very old character, you can do exactly what I did and pick the Electro Blue dye just to show it off, but there's no way you would horribly break the economy because you can't then sell that and flush it out. This does mean that demand is lowered, and so prices can be affected slightly because of that, but supply is not increased, and it's just really nice the way that we get to choose exactly what we want, and every character you get will get that same luxury. In addition to that, there is a finisher, and this is really good because what this finisher does is it is completely bound to your account. It cannot be traded anywhere else, and so if you stomp someone and use the 3 years old finisher, they know 100% they just got killed by a true veteran of the game. And hopefully that sets a precedent for future years as well, where we get other better finishers, and you know when you're being hit by those really old players. It's a good thing to be able to show off. And they gave us a level scroll again. This time it was level 30, in addition to the birthday boosters and so forth. Level 30 scroll, alright, fine. Maybe in another 2 years we'll get a level 40 scroll, and then eventually like a level 80 scroll. That'll be brilliant. But there you go, that's the birthday. Not too much more to say. There were some really cool changes with this most recent patch. To do with quality of life with the game. Now, for the professions, there was some profession balance, though I'm hesitant to call it profession balance. It was more just bug fixing. It was more reining in some of these issues that were introduced with the specialization patch. As an elementalist, this really really, I think, was only tooltip changes for me. But like Engineer, that had such a huge overhaul. They've had many different functionalities and things kind of refined and fixed. Even Necromancer had a fair amount of stuff too. Nothing super crazy that screams out to me. Also in line of bug fixes, this was what they say at the top of the patch notes: Ogre Wars has been fixed. Ogre Wars is a meta event that takes place in the Fields of Ruin, from which, if it succeeds, you have a chance of getting an exotic called Sam. Sam's this little rabbit, and it is currently worth a lot of money on the TP. Why? Because it's used for that treasure hunter collection that gives you that special box in your home instance, but also because the event bugs out so frequently, barely anyone has the damn thing, and that's a real shame that something's just so expensive because it breaks over and over. If you really wanted to super play into Ogre Wars and get them every time it respawns, you kind of have to do this crazy metagame thing. I remember reading like this enormous guide someone wrote on Reddit on specifically how to game and complete the Ogre Wars events, just to avoid all these pitfalls and traps that can accidentally cause the events to bug. And there was just so much information laid out. Well, finally ArenaNet have addressed those bugs, and hopefully now, I doubt they got all of them, honestly, because it was so horribly broken. But to give them the benefit of the doubt just straight away, let's say it. Yes, Ogre Wars is fixed. How wonderful is that? There were some other really fantastic things for the worlds of PvP and World vs. World. And so for World vs. World, Arrow Cart's line of sighting has been changed. Now, this is pretty cool. This was a well-known thing in the community for a long time, that if you increased your FOV somehow, for example, before like the actual FOV slider was in the game, you could, and you could still do this for what it's worth, you could put your game client into a window and then spread it horizontally as wide as you possibly can. This would give you the ability to target on the other side of walls and things that you shouldn't in theory be able to, but then you'd be able to aim your arrow cart in places that devs didn't want to necessarily allow. And in fact, the idea of an FOV slider was being asked for ages, and I think at one point actually a very serious reason why it wasn't there was because people were saying, to do with this World vs. World arrow cart stuff, they didn't want this idea of a graphical slider impacting actual gameplay stuff. And so they have changed this. There was a post a little while ago saying this change was coming into the game. I'm not sure what the new methods are, but now these weird little tricks and stuff like that won't be working, and arrow carts are hopefully as they intended. That's pretty nice. I mentioned something about PvP. This is huge for me, and it's the way that stealth works and pinging works. So first of all, now when you target someone, this works in PvE as well, and World vs. World for what it's worth. It's just I feel it's going to be most relevant for PvP. If I say I have called target on this ranger's bear, it, instead of just putting the little dot there, will now ping on the minimap too, as if you had shift-clicked the minimap. Guild Wars 1 had this feature too, and it mysteriously hasn't been in Guild Wars 2 till this day. The one thing still that its predecessor had that GW2 doesn't have is when you pinged in that game, it would also play a sound effect. And I get that some people might be annoyed by that sound effect, but that was really nice to be able to play PvP like being a Conquest match and hear the ding noise and you're like, oh god, someone just pinged something, and then look straight away, would be so useful, because you could look immediately to the minimap, know where they are, whether it's at your node currently, and then if you see it is at your node, you can physically look with your eyes and see who someone's pinged. That'd be wonderful. This is exactly what we should have. That sound effect still isn't on there, but this is a really nice start. Then, also, with stealth, pinging and targeting has changed. So one thing that's always been really frustrating is you're fighting a thief or a mesmer using an awful lot of stealth, whichever you like. Specifically, mesmers with a lot of stealth frustrate me because they have a lot of clones too. And you know exactly where your target is. They stealth very briefly, and when they pop back out, it can be really annoying and clunky to figure out where your target is again. Now, some people are going to argue this is skill cap, and to an extent, I would say, yes, this absolutely is skill cap. Well, now, by targeting that specific enemy, when they stealth and come back, the target will remain above their head. Implementing this did cause a bug in the engine where you could stomp people in stealth for a little while, which they have since fixed, and also introduced a bug where you could rally off of mesmer clones. In fact, maybe that bug was just added for some other ungodly reason. But this is really nice quality of life. This means there's real reason to target specific classes. Hopefully people will do it more, and it will encourage a bit more of that team play where you try and spike individual targets down. And obviously a very easy thing you can now do is you target the mesmer when they stealth, you just start spamming that button, which means you're going to take target. And then the second they reveal themselves, you immediately have your target back and you get to go. Specifically when I play stuff like Fresh Air Elementalist, which requires heavily to have a target. Think about Meditations, Guardians as well, or Guardians like using swords specifically. These kind of playstyles really will benefit from that, and it's nice. It's another thing that makes the combat slightly less clunky. There are also some gem store updates. The wedding outfit did come to the game. It costs 1,000 gems. But okay, you can get married at Lion's Arch now if you want, with like your little RP weddings by buying this for 1,000 gems. And to top the whole costume off, you can also, for the next 6 days, buy the white wings. They have returned to the gem store, and you can get those. And I would sincerely recommend people pick them up if they want them, because I had a lot of comments of people saying, damn it, I missed them. Wooden Potatoes, you didn't do a video quick enough. Well, I'm doing one here. You got a week to buy the white wings. All right, there you go. That's the patch. Moving on, let's have a look at data mining. Now, in the background, you'll see a video. This is pulled directly from that shaman's YouTube channel, showing off some new Tengu. He did this a little while ago. We saw some new variants of them, and there's even more here, including a really awesome looking parrot-type Tengu. I still don't believe they're randomly going to drop in Tengu. Oh, surprise, it's a playable race for Heart of Thorns. The world doesn't work that way, but it's nice to see there's going to be a lot more varieties of them. I'm looking forward to just being shocked as I see all these new enemies and stuff running around in Heart of Thorns. In addition to this, we of course had some other stuff, you know, upcoming gem store things, stuff like that. A few important ones though. Number one, it sounds like when the challenging group content announcements occur, and they're going on this weekend, ArenaNet are really pulling out all the stops. They've hired a prime place in a prime location at PAX specifically to deliver this announcement. We know they have Colin Johansson and Mike O'Brien there. We know that they are doing multiple announcements about Guild Wars 2, not just the one, and that they're saying this is going to be shaping the future. They really think this is a huge announcement. They're even going so far as to, in-game, they're going to announce to us in the top right where our meta events and stuff occur, presumably, hey, there's a special announcement about Guild Wars 2 going on, please come check it out. They haven't done that, I think, except when they revealed the expansion itself. That's huge. You know, that really starts to fill me with, wow, what is this big announcement they have for us? And it may even coincide with something else. It looks like some actual content, new playable stuff might be coming in the game soon as well. Supposedly there's going to be strange activity in Kessex Hills, Diessa Plateau, and Brisbane Wildlands. Reminds me a lot of Season 1 Living World style stuff, or even Season 2 when, for example, we saw the Mordrum attacked a few areas across Ascalon, or was it just the one area in Ascalon, just the one map? So who knows what this could be, but it may be related to another small thing that they dropped into the game with this patch, where in some of these maps, like in Brisbane Wildlands, you can see there are now like Mordrum routes and things being experimented on in a couple of the trade camps, and other ones in Kessex Hills, and I'm guessing there's another final one, though I haven't heard anything about it, in Diessa Plateau also. So it seems like there's going to be some kind of update coming into the game fairly soon. And with that, the mysterious key pouch. Remember the Tower of Nightmares and the tricolor key? There were 3 different key pieces you'd get, and you could get these big rewards if you did it every day, climb that tower. But it seems like this may be coming back. I'm really excited to see how ArenaNet take those good ideas, those well-received ideas that were removed because they were Season 1 stuff, and implement them back into the game. In fact, here we've got the idea of the key, 3 pieces, and then we've got the idea of 3 different maps too. I think it's all related, and I think whatever this new content's going to be, it's just going to hold us over till the expansion, and I think we get one part of the key in each of these 3 maps, so we combine it together and get some kind of reward. And it could be, you know, a daily or a weekly or a monthly tide reward or something like that. To cap the video off, let's talk about Beta Weekend Event 2. What is changing? Well, the date for this is September 4th. Yeah, so Guild Wars 2, you know, if there's any one thing that's made me realize, oh man, they didn't release it in August. It wasn't the August release we all wanted. It's seeing that Beta Weekend Event 2, September 4th. So that's the date. That puts it just over a week away from you guys watching this video, if you watch it on the day that it comes out. They do once again say that there is still not going to be any massive spoilers for their betas, but we will once again be seeing some new stuff. So we're going to get more of Verdant Brink. The jungle floor is now open. So this, but I don't know whether we're going to get only this new area or whether we're going to get the old area as well as this. But so the jungle floors are now open. We're going to get to experience one of these different biomes. They say in total, this beta weekend event will encompass about 25% of the entire playable terrain in the first map for Heart of Thorns. So I'm really curious to see how this compares to the size of the previous beta, but totally new areas. They even give us some hints at the content that will be in there. Obviously, because we're on the jungle floor, I'm expected to be a lot darker, much more cavernous, more of these roots, more dense foliage. Well, supposedly there is a meta event to do with nobles who wanted a view of the fight between the Pact and Morjamoth. Yeah, that's some serious hubris right there. And I kind of like the idea, actually. And supposedly, one of these nobles that was on this ship, and then obviously the pact got blown out of the sky, and these guys did too. Supposedly, one of these is a very familiar noble to us. We did have, from a long time ago, this idea that Farron was in this map somewhere, Lord Farron. I think it's probably Lord Farron, and they say that he may have gone wild. So are we going to see like a Tarzan version of Lord Farron? You know, he's gone, he's been alone in the jungle. All of his clothes have been torn and he's got war paint all over him and he's surviving now, learning to master the jungle. That'd be really cool. I'm looking forward to some comic relief with him. And they also talk about another meta event. And this makes the lore nerd in me very happy. This is the same as early on we heard about Loranthra of the Wild being a part of the story, as well as those specific Sylvari with him that we'd heard about from like one small personal story instance back in Ore. And I was really happy to see that they were once again being referenced in Heart of Thorns, and there was a bit of honor being done to some of these old characters and arcs that had been treated so poorly before and just thrown away. Well, they've done that again. When you play through the personal story, we're all familiar with it, you get to sympathize with a race at some point. One of those races, depending on what you are and what you've picked, is the potential to help out the Quaggan. And with these Quaggan, you meet a character called Baruch, and you kind of recruit them to the cause, and they'll appear again at some very late game or story mission. Well, these characters, again, from the personal story, are appearing in the open world for Heart of Thorns. These Quaggan are going to be down here on the jungle floor, and they'll have some kind of meta event associated with them. And then lastly, they do describe a little bit of the enemies we'll be fighting. I'm hoping for more than this, but they say specifically we're going to meet 2 more tribes of Hylek, and these are the Kotzik, or the Koztik, sorry, and the Koksotl. I don't know whether these are Nuhawk, Itzel, or standard sun-worshipping Hylek from the regular Tyrian areas, but they'll be really interesting to see. Lastly, for elite specializations, the new ones will indeed be here. So we have all the original ones, plus the Daredevil, which will be revealed properly tomorrow. We'll have the Herald and the Berserker. They've all been added, as well as big balance changes for the previous ones. And indeed, there were fairly substantive balance changes for the other elite specializations after the previous beta weekend event. A lot of things, like people were saying Greatsword on Reaper felt kind of weak, and they've responded by being like, okay, here's some massive huge buffs to the damage modifiers. Same for Tempest overloads. Just across the board, everything seems to be a lot more interesting. I did try, and you guys will see a video on my channel soon of me attempting this. I did try Condi Reaper for a very brief period of time in the previous beta weekend event, and I wanted to play with the whole chill idea, and it seemed really weak and boring to me. Well, there's been buffs to that as well. So no matter what profession you like, there'll be something for you to do, unless you're an engineer or a ranger. And you guys get screwed. Not only do you get screwed because you don't get to play your favorite class's elite specializations in the first 2 beta weekend events, probably just like the next one, and maybe if there's more after that, but you also get less time to give your feedback, and less time to see that feedback actually enacted upon, which ArenaNet are doing really well at right now. So that kind of is a bit of a shame. But there you go, guys. That's what's coming up. That's pretty much you caught up to date. Daredevil stuff. Hopefully, I'll have a really nice, juicy presentation for you guys on that tomorrow. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget, once again, that we do have a variety of competitions going on. We've got competitions to earn gems just from liking the videos. We've got a competition for creating an elite specialization, from producing art, and many more things. There'll be links in the description below. Cheers, guys. Have a wonderful day. I'll see you next time.